Today we are going to read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Although I have started it yesterday, I'm going to read it again, the whatever I read yesterday, because later I watched the video and it was really unlistenable because my voice was too low. So today we are going to start it again. So the writer name is Dale Carnegie. He wrote this book in 1930s, and in the back then and also now, this book is still selling good and is still relevant with every situation because technology might change, way of income might change, but the emotion of the people through how they connect, it won't change. So without any further delay, let's start. Just a minute, guys. So you can see people are still joining. We will take some time to start. Not much. Am I audible? Hello, can you tell me, am I audible? Is my voice good enough to listen? Hello, Trident Gaming. How are you? In 1931, the most sensational manhunt New York City had ever known. Ever known had come to its climax. After weeks of search, took on Crowley the killer, the gunman, who didn't smoke or drink, was at bay trapped in his sweetheart apartment on West Street. Sorry, apartment on West End Avenue. 150 policemen and detectives laid siege to his top floor hideaway. They chopped holes in the roof. They tried to smoke out Crowley, the cop killer, with tear gas. Then they mounted their machine gun on surrounding buildings. And for more than an hour, one of the New York's fine residential areas reverberated with the crack of pistol fire and the rat-a-tat of the machine guns. Crowley, crouching behind an overstuffed chair, fired insistently at the police. 10,000 excited people watched the battle, nothing like it ever had been seen before on the sidewalks of New York. When Crowley was captured, Police Commissioner A.P. Mulroney declared that Dugan Desperado was one of the most dangerous criminals ever encountered in the history of the New York. He will kill, said the commissioner, at the drop of a feather. Am I audible, guys? Should I be more loud? Okay. When Crowley was captured, the police commissioner, A.P. Mulroney, declared that the two-gun desperado was one of the most dangerous criminals ever encountered in the history of the New York. He will kill, said the commissioner, at the drop of a feather. But how did Two-Gun Crowley regard himself? We know because while the police were firing into his apartment, he wrote a letter addressed to whom it may concern. And as he wrote, the blood flowing from his wound left a crimson trail on the paper. In this letter, Crowley said, "Under my coat is a weary heart, but a kind one that would do nobody any harm." Does Crowley seems a nice person? Let's see in the next page. A short time before this, Crowley had been having a necking party with his girlfriend on a country road out on the Long Island. Suddenly, a policeman walked up to the car and said, "Let me see your license." Without saying a word, Crowley drew his gun and cut the policeman down with a shower of lead. As the dying police officer fell, Crowley leapt out of the car, grabbed the officer's revolver, and fired another bullet into the prostrate body. And that was the killer who said, "Under my coat is a very hard but a kind one that would do nobody any harm." Crowley was sentenced to electric chair. When he arrived at the death house in Sing Sing, did he say, "This is what I get for killing people"? No, he said, "This is what I get for defending myself." The point of the story is this: Dugan Crowley didn't blame himself for anything. Is that an unusual attitude among the criminals? If you think so, listen to this. I have spent the best years of my life giving people the lighter pleasures, helping them have a good time, and all I get is abuse. The existence of the haunted man. That's Al Capone speaking. Yes, America's most notorious public enemy, the most sinister gang leader who ever sought Chicago. Capone didn't condemn himself. He actually regarded himself as a public benefactor, an unappreciated and misunderstood public benefactor. And so did Dutch Sludge before he crumbled up under gangster bullet in New York. Dutch Sludge, one of the New York's most notorious rats, said in a newspaper interview that he was a public benefactor, and he believed it. I have had some interesting correspondence with the Louis Lawless. Louis Lawless, who was warden of the New York and famous Sing Sing prison for many years on this subject, and he declared that few of the criminals in the Sing Sing regard themselves as bad men. They are just as human as you and I. So they rationalize, they explain, they can tell you why they had to Sorry, so they are just as human as you and I, so they rationalize, they explain. They can tell you why they had to crack a safe or be quick on the trigger finger. Most of them attempt by a form of reasoning, fallacies or logical, to justify their antisocial acts, even to themselves. Consequently, stoutly maintaining that they should never have been imprisoned at all. If El Capone took on Crowley, Dutch Sloch, and the desperate men and women behind the prison wall don't blame themselves for anything, what about the people with whom you and I come in contact? John Wanamaker, founder of the stores that bear his names, once confessed, I learned 30 years ago that it is foolish to scold. I have enough trouble overcoming my own limitations without fretting over the fact that the God has not seen fit to distribute evenly the gift of the intelligence. Wanamaker learned this lesson early, but I personally had to blunder through this old world for a thought of century before it even began to dawn upon me that 99 times out of 100 people don't criticize themselves for anything, no matter how wrong it may be. Criticism is futile because it puts a person on the defensive and usually makes him strive to justify himself. Criticism is dangerous. Yeah, criticism might be dangerous. The criticisms are of different type. You don't have to read somewhere. You just have to use your moral values. If you criticize someone nicely in a way, it might encourage them to improve themselves. But if your way of criticizing is bad, it will kill that person. If not from physically, if not from outside, it will definitely kill him or her from the inside, from the belief and that urge of keep doing that thing. So yeah, let's continue. In the book, criticism is futile because it puts a person on the defensive and usually makes him strive to justify himself. Criticism is dangerous because it wounds a person's precious pride, hurts his sense of importance, and arouses resentment. B.F. Skinner, the world-famous psychologist, proved through his experiment that an animal rewarded for the good behavior will learn much more rapidly and retain what it learns far more effectively than an animal punished for the bad behavior. What the writer trying to say is, if you really want to teach someone something, um, and that is what you want, you should be good enough in behavior to teach them. See, if you beat a child and teach him not to do that thing or those things, he won't do in front of you, but he will definitely do if you are not around him or her. Later studies have shown that the same applies to humans. By criticizing, we damn this aid. Sorry, guys. So, Hans Selye, another great psychologist, said, as much as we thirst for the approval, we dread condemnation. So, let me see the word condemnation. No one knows everything, does they? So the word condemnation means the expression of very strong disapproval, sense of disapproval. The resentment that criticism engenders can demoralize employees, family members, and friends, and is still not the correct situation that has been condemned. What is condemned? Expression of very strong disapproval. So, George B. Johnston of the Enid, Oklahoma, is the safety coordinator for an engineer company. One of his responsibilities is to see that employees wear their hard hats that people use to protect their head. Whenever they are on the job in the field, he reported that whenever he came across workers who were not wearing hard hats, he would tell them with a lot of authority of the regulation and that they must comply. As a result, he would get sullen acceptance. And often, after he left, the workers would remove the hats. See, they were not understanding that it was for their safety. They were just taking the order, and when you took the order, you don't do it by yourself. You do it forcefully, and things that we do forcefully, we don't keep it doing regularly or by our choice. So, George decided to try a different approach. The next time, he found some of the workers not wearing their hard hat. He asked if the hats were uncomfortable or did not fit properly. Then he reminded the men in a pleasant tone of voice that the hat was designed to protect them from the injury, and suggested that it always be worn on the job. The result was increased compliance with the regulation with no resentment or emotional upset. So, when the judge decided to tell them what the reality was, to say them to wear the hat, all the workers agreed and continued to wear the hat. So, sometimes what you tell the people in exact what it was about, it will make it easy. Yeah, sometimes if you don't, it will also make it easy. So it is based upon the situation. You'll find an example of the futility of the criticism bristling on 1,000 pages of history. Take, for example, the famous quarrel between Theodore Roosevelt and President Taft. So this will continue tomorrow, and for today we are ending our live book reading session here, and thank you for being with me and giving your precious time. Have a good time. Bye bye. So to the new viewer also, you are a little bit late. We'll continue tomorrow. Bye bye.